Hi, it's Leanne. I often find myself in the middle of two extremes. I'm not an optimist, so I don't plan a picnic without checking the weather first. But I'm also not a pessimist. I don't think it's going to rain every time I plan an outdoor activity. I like to say I'm a realist. I carry an umbrella if there's a 20% chance of rain, or more. So what does rain have to do with translation? Well, when it comes to learning how to translate, again, I find myself in the middle of two extremes. So, the first extreme is that the general public thinks that anyone who speaks two languages should be able to do written translation easily, or that it's acceptable to use Google Translate for everything. Ah. The other extreme is that many translation professors and scholars would tell you emphatically that the only way to learn translation is to attend a 3 or 4 year university program. I believe that there's an acceptable middle ground, and I have experience on both sides. I originally tried to do written translation with just my bilingual skills. Well, not only was that a dismal failure, but it was incredibly frustrating. I didn't have the tools or the knowledge of principles and procedures that were necessary to create a good translation. So I decided to do a BA in translation while I was in my 40s, and I plunged into learning almost 100 translation techniques over the next few years. Well, that was often overwhelming. And when I was translating, it was so hard to remember all those techniques. Honestly, I felt like we never caught the big picture idea of what makes a good translation because we were drowning in the details. Ironically, it was through doing master's and doctoral research with my nonprofit translation team that I finally saw the big picture needed to be a good translator. Now, most of my team were volunteers who did not have university training. I was able to identify three keys to a quality translation: fidelity, readability, and conformity, as well as 9 best practices that support them. Now, those three keys are a lot easier to remember than 100 translation techniques. So I started teaching these concepts to members of my nonprofit translation team, and I watched their translation quality increase. And I have also taught the same concepts to hundreds of university translation students to help them get the big picture about translation quality before they dive into the details. So I'm not an optimist about translation skills. I'm aware that a bilingual person needs training in order to learn how to translate well. But I'm also not a pessimist. I don't believe that university is the only place you can learn translation. I'm a realist. Not everyone has the time or money to go to university, especially if they will be doing volunteer translation for a nonprofit or they want to start a side hustle in translation rather than doing it as a full-time career. So that's why I created an alternate method of training translators that is acceptable and affordable and accelerated. I've been perfecting it over the last year, and this online training is almost ready. So stay tuned throughout July for more information about how to think like a translator.